Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of French auction portal Informal and we're going to have a look at another auction by Vichy Auctions. So this auction house put on lots of auctions throughout the year. They're really quite well known, probably the biggest auction house in France. And if you've been watching any of my recent videos, you'll know that they've had 3 auctions back to back. There was one on the 29th of November, which was yesterday, one on the 30th, which was today, that might just about be finishing now or still a little bit ongoing, and there'll be one tomorrow. It's been pretty much going up in order of kind of quality and price. So the first auction was very low value stuff. The one that's today was kind of middle ground, and this one that we're going to look at now is kind of the super kind of fancy stuff, or mainly there's some lower stuff as well, but it's better stuff. 390 lots on this. There's some really cool stuff in this auction actually. I do in general these days try and not cover everything, although I do like to look at everything, but to make it easier for people I try and pick out a few key things. But there's so many good things in this auction, I think it's going to be pretty difficult, so do bear with me, and this might be a bit of a longer one than normal, but I'll still try and skip some bits. Buyer's premium is 24% on this, so that's the amount that you pay, percentage of the hammer price that you pay on top. This is a French auction, as I said, so if you are bidding and you're outside of France, you might check the terms and conditions, which are up here, and just make sure that you're aware of import-export fees and any CITES kind of legislation. Other than that, yeah, I'll put a link in the description, and I really definitely recommend checking out this auction if you can before it finishes, because this is a really good high quality auction with some really interesting items. So I'll do my best to showcase a few of these, and like I said, I'll try not to kind of drag it on too long and do everything, but it's definitely worth having a look at. Yeah, so if we kind of have a look straight away, we'll kind of pass on this 19th century Miracle violin, although I'm sure it's very lovely. We've got a bow by Bazin, Cunha-Huri there, another Bazin. This is all kind of good stuff. Let's have a look at my old favourite, the French provincial violins from around 1770. Let's have a look here. It's got a Marty label with its original neck, I think they're saying, crack on the top and the sides, 354 length of back. That's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's quite a nice instrument, good with its original neck there. I'm a fan of these French provincial violins, other people not so much, but for me they're pretty good. Got a composite violin here, got a Tononi label, 18th century Italian style, table and head replaced, which is fairly common, 4 to 5,000 there. So looks interesting, but not really kind of pulling me in as such so far. We're going to look at the first few, I think, because these are some interesting ones, and skip some others. German violin, second part of the 18th century, 2 to 3,000 there, 358 length of back. I mean, this is very kind of German. We instantly see like these F holes, and then also looking to the scroll. For me, this is quite kind of the turn, that final kind of turn just always reminds me of the kind of German instruments, but still interesting enough. Violin here by Giuseppe Bossi, made in Stradella, 1929. It's got an Eric Blott certificate, which is a pretty good certificate to have, 3 to 4,000 euros there. It's a pretty interesting model, let's say. Interesting F-holes, and general workmanship is a little bit interesting. I like this nice turns on the scroll. For me personally, I think that's fairly interesting. Let's have a look at this violin here. Violin by Jean Collin, made in Miracle around 1770. Has this typical kind of 18th century kind of quite light yellowy orange varnish, 360 length of back. Interesting kind of the F-holes are, a little bit curious on that. Yeah, it's very typical, 2.5 to 3. It's interesting. Got a Derazi violin there, which I'm sure is very nice, but I think we'll just pass on that for now. Let's have a look at this violin by Auguste Dart, Miracle 1875, 360 length of back there, 3 to 4,000. I think that's not too bad. I think that's got some charm, that instrument. Got Leon Mougenot there. Corsin, big fan of the work of Francois Corsin as well, made in Neufchâteau, 1860, 358 length of back. Needs a little bit of TLC. I think that's quite a nice instrument there. Violin from Antoine Frambach. Let's have a look at this, probably German violin. So around 1770, 1780, 361 length of back. Interesting kind of work there on the scroll. Kind of slightly kind of recessed shaping. Yeah, it's an interesting looking violin there, 3 to 3.5. Another violin by Francois Corsin, so we'll move past that one for now. Violin by Jean-Baptiste Frebrenet, that's always quite nice. This one looks like quite a good one. 19th century French violin, made in the style of Charles Plumerel, 8 to 10,000 euros there. So let's have a look. Looks in fairly tidy condition there. Mirecourt violin by Grandjean, I think we'll move past that. Another early 20th century French violin. This one is potentially interesting. Violin by Johann Paul Schoen, made in Salzburg, early 18th century. It's quite interesting. 352 length of back. It's got a Vidalm label, 4 to 5,000. Yeah, I think that's a fairly nice looking instrument. Kind of a Marti-esque. Small size viola, always good to have a look at violas. Small size viola by Johann Reinhard Stork, Strasbourg, 1779. 373, that really tiny viola. It's amazing how many tiny kind of violas are actually out there. Definitely needs a little bit of work there. Violin by Pierre Hell, very popular maker. Lille, 1920. 352 length of back. Definitely needing a substantial repair there. That's quite unfortunate break there at the button. This is another interesting 18th century French violin, original neck, 349. It's quite small. That's definitely charming. I'm a fan of these kind of violins. It's a violin in the workshop of Hippolyte Chrétien Sylvestre. We can go past that. Let's have a look at this slightly what a 19th century violin labelled Mariani. It's an interesting choice of wood for the top there, 360 length the back. That's a bit of a odd instrument. Interesting purfling here, like very wide purfling. Curious instrument. Got an 18th century violin here with a Testori label, 2 to 3. That's nice back. Quite like this. A little bit worn and kind of a bit of figure and then a little bit of plain kind of things. That's interesting. 2 to 3. That's my kind of violin, I think. Got a violin by Pierre Sylvestre. I should probably look at some of more French violins, otherwise I'll get in trouble. Made in Lyon in 1857. 359 length of back there. Odd kind of not sure if that's the actual varnish or the way that the photograph has been taken. It's like odd glare on that, but yeah, it looks fairly standard kind of French violin. We've got a few bows here. Morizot, workshop of Picat there, Bazin, JTL, Lamy. Let's have a look at this Lamy bow here. Joseph Alfred Lamy pair, made circa 1900 there. Says it's a small bump on the rise, otherwise good condition. 8 to 10,000. Morizon bow, Tomachot, Martin, piano. Let's have a look at this cello bow by Victor Francois Fetique, made around 1920-1925. It's not many pictures. 10 to 12, looks like a nice bow. Morizon here, Martin, Thomasin. Let's have a look. We need to look at a few more bows, I think. Violin bow by Claude Auguste Thomasin, 1905, silver mounted, 58 grams. Okay, head, small chip and slight crack on the rise. Let's see. A bit difficult to see what's going on there. Then we've got Bazin bow again, more Bazin, piano, Bazin, Picat. That's just the stick though. Sartori bow here, everyone's favourite at the moment. Violin stick by Eugene Nicholas Sartori, 1910, 58 grams. Stick and head blows, small upstrokes. Let's see. Looks like maybe they're referring something around here. Some of this, it's not entirely clear what they're talking about. This is definitely worth looking in person. If you're interested in bows, you really need to kind of inspect these in person, because it can be really difficult to see some of the damage, and it's really easy to kind of hide it as well. There's a Gouda bow there as well, 3 to 4. I mean, this auction is brilliant. I really recommend having a look through every lot. It's just a bit too much for me to go through all of it. Mère Picat bow there, Thomasin, viola bow, Fetique there. It's actually quite a nice viola bow, this one. Mère Picat School, made around 1860 in Snakewood. For some reason I think I'm kind of really quite like Snakewood. 3 to 4,000. Well, we got a reprieve from the Pernambuco situation recently with CITES, so at least should be safe for travelling still with Pernambuco for a while. Mirko violin in the late 19th century, we can skip that. So a 20th century Italian violin bearing the Petrus Scarabolto label. Okay, 4 to 5 on that. Not overly exciting. Let's have a look at this. An interesting 19th century violin as a copy of Del Gesù. Yeah, looks interesting. The scroll is a bit curious. Would have been quite nice to have seen a front picture of that scroll, so that's a bit unfortunate. Jean Bourgeat there. Pierre Sylvestre. Let's have a look at this. Made in Lyon 1858. 858. Not too dissimilar from the other one. Louis Collinot. I mean, these are all good violins, definitely. Another Chapuis there. Definitely interesting. Violin by Derazy, another wonderful maker. Hippolyte Corsin there, 2 to 3. Here's a Joseph Hell. Should look at this. Made in Lille, 1895, 12 to 15. That looks pretty clean. Crack on the table. Sorry, viola. I think I said this was a violin. 405. Viola by Joseph Hell. Let's have a look at that crack on the forehead. Okay, so it has a little bit of work that needs doing. Let's just make sure I've not gone mad on other things. Violin Léon Mougenot. Viola by Leo Cyr, made in Marmande, 1904. Let's have a look at this. 413. That's a good size. Slightly curious crackulature kind of happening here on the varnish. 324. Violin by Bernardel. Okay, interesting. Sebastian Bernardel. Pair made in Paris 1846. Magini model. This is probably going to be quite big. Yeah, 369. It's really huge. It's a shame that these are so big, because this is like a very nice violin. Bernardel, I think, really beautifully made violins. Unfortunately, it's got a bit of a, looks like a soundpost crack there, but it's been repaired, so that's one thing. But this is a beautiful, this is a very nice quality instrument. I've kind of seen a couple of Bernardels, including one of these Magini models. It's just, they're so big, it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people to play, which is unfortunate. But I can definitely say that these are really nicely made instruments for sure. I've got a Ferdinand Jacot Miracle violin there. Honoré Derazy Miracle 1840. We'll go past that for now. A French violin from the Gersaint school. Let's have a look at this. This is kind of mid 18th century. 358. Yeah, I quite like that. It's quite a nice instrument. Let's have a look at this one. An interesting French violin made around 1830 with a Chanot label. 360 length of back there. Restored soundpost crack, 12 to 15,000. That's a nice looking instrument for sure. Yeah, that's very beautiful. Ooh, it's showing pictures of the inside. Yep, nice thing. That's I think this is one of the nicest instruments so far. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's a good one. Another a Pierre Enel viola here. There's not so many violas about, so let's have a look at it. 1947 in Lyon. There's a lot of Lyon work in this auction. 417 length of back, 4 to 5. Yeah, not overly inspired by that. Violin by Van Leeuwen in The Hague. Let's kind of have a look at this. 1913. Looks a little bit scuffed. 358 length of back, 1500 to 2000. Yeah, that's got charm. Yeah, I quite like that. That's not bad. Now we get to a real Gersaint here. Wonderful. Violin by Louis Gersaint, made in Paris around 1740-1745. It's got a soundpost crack. It's got a certificate of Etienne Vatelot there. Okay, 359 length of back, 15 to 18,000 euros there. Other certificates. Yeah, nice violin. That's it's a nice scroll there. Yep, that's a good instrument. Gersaint, that's great maker. Another Miracle violin here, mid 19th century. Violin by Lucien Schmidt, made in Geneva. I think we've seen one of those recently. Violin by Andreas Castagneri, made in Paris around 1740. Later French head, 7 to 8,000. 355. French violin from the end of the 19th century from the Corsin family. Looks a little bit curious. Actually, let's have a quick look at that because it looks a little bit audible. 358 length of back. That is some slightly odd positioned sound holes. Right, this is absolutely wonderful instrument actually. Beautiful violin by Stefano Scarampella, made in Mantua 1905. Labelled as such. Restorations on the front left hand side. 357 length of back. Certificate from Etienne Vatelot. You can't bid live on that one, so you have to kind of bid in advance. Yeah, this is really nice. One absolutely wonderful. Love this kind of slab kind of cut back. That's one of the things I really love in instruments, is to see either like a kind of slab cut back or like a little bit of a kind of figure like a flame or a curl, and then a bit of kind of slab, something in between. I'm not a massive fan of kind of full on all flame or style all quilt. I like a little bit of a mixture, but this is a great looking instrument. 80 to 100,000 from a wonderful maker. Yeah, really great instrument, and got a few showing the certificates there. Condition reports, not really saying all that much. Yeah, it's a nice looking violin. Back to bows, we've got a Usha here, Nürnberger, Dominique Poisson, John Clutterbuck, former Hill maker. Let's have a look. I like to look at the English bows. Double bass bow by John Clutterbuck, former Hills and Sons worker, 1987. 1500 to 2000. Looks in pretty good. Small teeth to the head. Satori bow here. We've got to look at it really, don't we? A violin bow by Eugene Nicholas Satori, 61 grams. Slight bead knot, back and thumb wear, minor dents, chips and fracture on the rise. Okay, so it's got a little bit of an issue, 12 to 15, but not too bad. Morizon pair bow there, Francois Fatigue, Lamy pair, Emile Huchard, Fatigue, Joseph Morizon again, double bass bow by Andre Chardon, Bazin again. This is an interesting bow. Let's have a look at this. Cello bow by Bernard Georges Louis Millant, made around 1967, signed Berlin Millant Paris, mounted in tortoiseshell and gold, 79 grams, very light rear beadwear in new condition. Okay, wonderful. 10 to 15,000. That's very sharp, very well made, as you'd expect from a bow by Bernard Millant. That's a nice example. Yep, very good. I wouldn't personally buy a bow with tortoise shell on, or gold even, but it looks very nice. Peugeot school bow, that's quite nice. Richaume, Francois Pacat here. Frechner bow, it's got quite a large eye for a Frechner. Satori again, I think we've seen enough Satoris for now. It's got heavy wear at the top of the stick there. Morizon again, another Satori. Wow, there's quite a few here. Celestin Emile Clasquin. Actually, oh wow, there's a crazy bow there. But let's have a look at this violin bow by Celestin Emile Clasquin, 1920-25, 60 grams. Side and top shots, thumb and rear ramrod wear. Some odd kind of translations or terminology in some of this. Okay, wow. This is violin bow by Dominique Pacat, made 1845-1850, signed Pacat, silver mounted, back button, 53 grams with fine wick and trim, small wear at the bottom of the strip with slight trace of mortise, screw and nut, small crack in the front of mortise, screw and nut, slide slightly damaged, small fractures on top, good condition. Certificate from Raffin. There you go, that's what you want. Yeah, interesting. Another one that you need to kind of call them, I think, for the bidding. So yeah, let's have a quick look at this. There's your certificate there, that's what you want. Interesting looking bow there. That's a serious bow, 100 to 120,000 euros. That's pretty crazy. Got a Mircore cello there, 1800 to 2000. I think we'll go past that for now. JTL cello, 20th century cello. Other 20th century cello there. Cello by Henri Hernault. Let's have a look at this. Made in Paris, 1927. 763 on that. Really fine crackleture on that instrument all across. 13 to 15,000 euros. Another 20th century cello. This is a curious one. Interesting cello by David Christian Hopf, made in Quittenbach around 1775-1780 with a Hopf label. 715. Yeah, that's quite cute. I can't remember if I've seen a a Hopf cello before. Maybe I have and I've just erased it from my memory, but yeah, that looks alright. 4.5 to 5,000. That's not a bad price for kind of 18th century cello. It's a 20th century there with a Bergonzi label, another Mirecourt cello there. Let's have a look at this fine French cello here. Beautiful cello by Georges Apparout, Mirecourt, 1944. 760, 15 to 20,000 euros there. Yeah, it looks in very clean kind of condition. It's been well looked after. Cello, Mirecourt cello there. Cello from the Czech school. The 20th century cello. This is an interesting looking one. German cello, second part of the 18th century, bearing the Klotz label. 695. It's a little bit smaller. 4 to 5. Interesting back there. And cello Lebert Humbert, Mirecourt cello there, cello probably Marshall, Colin Mazat cello there, 19th century cello from the German school. Let's have a look at this 18th century German cello. 750, 15 to 20,000. It's got a head break there. Interesting enough. Let's move past this German cello. Let's have a look at this interesting 20th century cello with a Fiorini label. 764, 8 to 10,000 there. Cello by Walter Mason in Manchester. Well, we've got to have a look at a few of the English things. 755, CC side replaced. Okay, 6 to 7. Okay. 3/4 cello there. Cello by Jean-Baptiste Villaume. Well, we've got to look at that as well, don't we? 200 to 250,000 there. This is a beautiful cello by Jean-Baptiste Villaume, made in Paris around 1840-1845, cracked on the restored table, some traces of original worms filled on the bottom. Instrument that belonged to Jean-Michel Moulin. Interesting. It's a curious looking one, probably not my favourite example that I've seen, but I'm sure it's a wonderful instrument. Viola bow by Jean-Jacques Millant there. Lamy Pear bow, Houchard, Cugno Huri. Looks like a fancy bow by Etienne Pajot here. Made around 1830. 52 grams. Node on the head side, small stabs, large heel, missing button, blocked and split. Good condition. You can see it needs a bit of work for sure. So, yep, 15 to 18 there. Then Morizon bow there, Thomasin, Martin, Morizon, cello bow by Fatigue, Frechner bow there, Jean-Baptiste Villaume. This is one of the metal. Is this the metal bow? Yeah, metal violin bow by Jean-Baptiste Villaume, made around 1880. Head resoldered. Okay, very good state. Raffin certificate there, 3 to 4. Yeah, it's interesting. We're really curious to know kind of how those bows perform actually. It's an interesting viola bow by Nicholas Deschênes II, 1820, ironwood, mounted in ivory. Chip of back of head blows a little taken back. Split button, 4 to 5,000 euros. See the damage there. Cugno Huri cello bow there, cello bow by Martin. Gillette bow, Ordonnant, Hoyer. Double bass bow by Houchard. Bazin violin bow, cello bow Ordonnant. Final bow Thomasin, cello bow by Henri. We better look at this one. Cello bow by Joseph Henri, made around 1855-1860, signed Henri in Paris. A small chip on the back of the ramrod. Looks like an interesting bow though. 30 to 40,000 there. That's double bass. Don't think we're going to have many of this in the auction. Double bass by Carlo Giuseppe Arienti, made in Milan 1825. Various repair labels, notably by Enrico Marchetti in 1889 and Giuseppe Pedrozzini in 1902. Neck, machine heads and soundbar restored. Varnish largely retouched, traces of worms restored, accompanied by several certificates including Pedrozzini and Andrea de Biziac. This double bass belonged to Luigi Casasco, double bass player in the Ilia Orchestra double. Oh yeah, interesting. Okay. Don't know why it's repeating everything, but let's have a look at it. I really don't know much about double basses, to be honest, but I'm sure that it sounds wonderful. 15 to 20,000 euros worth, I hope. And a violin by Georges Galvada in Lausanne. And a violin by Jean-Baptiste Lacombe. Interesting French provincial violin. We'll go past this one. 20th century viola sold by Monzino. Let's have a look at this. 5 to 7,000. Looks quite fairly okay condition. Violin by Joseph Klotz. Okay, interesting. Made in Mitterwald 1807. Traces of worm 353. Definitely needs a bit of attention and restoration. 2 to 2.5 there. I think that's not bad. Violin by Francois Cossat. Again, we can move past this. French violin from the Castiglieri school. Viola by Jean Petitcolas. Let's have a quick look at that. 1989, 409 length of back. Some good modern length. Looks okay. 3 to 4. Interesting violin from the 18th century Florence school with a Galliano label. 12 to 15,000. 350 length of back. Yep, definitely fairly interesting violin there. Italian violin from the beginning of the 20th century. 357. 3 to 4. That's a bit of a bizarre looking instrument, isn't it? It's definitely a bit curious. Okay. French viola, second part of the 18th century, with the Galliano label. 3 to 4. 391. That's a little bit smaller. Violin by Roger and Max Millant in Paris 1946. 357 length of back. 4 to 6,000. German violin in Mittenwald there, 18th century. Interesting violin by Albert Blanchy. Let's have a look at this one. 358 length of back there, 8 to 10,000. Got a Colin Mazar there, Emanuele Agildo in Rome. Workshop of Schmidt there. Let's actually have a look at this while we're here. 1926, 356. Looks not super exciting on that one. Violin from the workshop of Francois Piquet. Made in Paris around 1795, 1800. 358 length of back. It's interesting looking violin. Looks like an odd repairs here. This is really unfortunate. Non-original piece of wood on the back, so that's unfortunate. 15 to 18,000. German violin from the end of the 18th century. Interesting violin by Annibale Fagnola in Turin 1923, Presenda model. Okay, 355. I'm sure this will be popular instrument, 60 to 80,000 euros there. Violin in the workshop of Bernardel there, 20th century violin, Neapolitan copy. Let's have a look at this violin by Vincenzo Cennino, made in Naples, 1912, 354, length the back there, Eric Blott certificate, 52 to 55,000. And back to a few more bows. Vigneron bow there, viola Nicolas Malin, violin bow Jean-Dominique Adam, Morazan bow there, Lupo II, this is interesting. Violin bow by Francois Lupo II, made 1820, 51 grams. Have a look at this. 20 to 25,000. Violin bow by Arthur Barnes there. Hills and Sons Vigneron bow. Violin bow by James Tubbs. Let's have a look at that. Signed Jazz Tubbs, 1890. Six to 8 on that. Violin bow Christophe Schaeffer. Barbe bow Morazan, Francois Pacat. Victor Francois Fatique. Malcolm Taylor, let's have a look at this bow, 1970. Interesting detail on the frog there, viola bow, 2 to 3,000. Marie Persoit, let's have a look at that. Cello bow stick by Jean-Pierre Marie Persoit, made around 1830, marked Vioma, Paris. Vigneron frog and button, 82 grams. Some knocks, small crack on the head. Okay, 25 to 30,000. Got a Simon bow, Fatique, Martin. Another Martin bow there, Lamy Fee, Lapierre, Bazar, Martin, Bazar again. It's a cello bow by Eugene Nicholas Sartori, 1920, 69 grams. Blows to the head, small fractures and splinters on the eyes, 25 to 30. I think this is the blow to the head that you can just see there, 25 to 30,000. Violin by Lucien Schmidt there. Violin by Fabrizio Gianni, made in Viareggio. Okay, 1963, 361. Again, not really seeing anything super interesting to me. 3 to 4. 20th century violin by Francois Bovis in Nice in 1902. Violin by Robert Fritsch in Paris. Viola by Ernesto Pavere, made in Ferrara. Probably once again getting all the names wrong. 408 length of back, that's pretty good. Small cracks on the table. That's 15 to 20. Half-sized Italian violin, made around 1900. It's kind of genuine school. It's kind of unusual to see small size Italian violins. Curious, 3 to 4,000. This is a bit of a interesting one here. French violin, made in Paris around 1740, with the Gournel label, replaced head. Some restorations. That's definitely needs a good bit of further restoration, this one for sure. 3 to 4. Interesting violin by Francois Lupo, made in Orléans, late 18th century. 357 length of back there. 20 to 25,000. It's a nice looking violin, that. We've got to have a look at the Gand, I think. Gand Frères, made in Paris 1865. 358 length of back, 18 to 20. Looks pretty kind of clean. Some minor restorations, 18 to 20. We've got Viola by Hippolyte Silvestre, Lyon 1865. 398. So it's quite nice. Cello by Maurice Rougier, made in Toulon, 1943. 10 to 12 on that. Bit of wear or damage to the head. Violin by Chaudière, Montpellier, 1997. 357 length of back. Love that scroll, leaving in these kind of gouge marks in the scroll. That's really quite cool. 18th century violin, probably Italian, with a label of GB Rogerius, headstock replaced. Soundpost crack. 18th century. Yeah, interesting looking violin, 15 to 20. Violin by Amati Maginot, 18th century Italian violin, probably from the Naples school, with a Strad label, 357 length of back. 20 to 25,000 there. Miracle violin, Derazi school. Violin by César Candy, made in Genoa, 1923, 353. See length of back. Some of these kind of 20th century Italian violins I'm not a massive fan of, I have to be honest. 19th century violin there, violin by Marko Debrecevich, made in Cairo, 1960. 355 length of back. 15 to 18,000. Probably Italian violin, beginning of the 20th century. Got a Postiglione label. 353, 10 to kind of 12,000 there. It's definitely got some charm. Quite like that scroll. French provincial violin, we could ignore that I think for now, but let's have a look at this. Violin by Giovanni Battista Gabriele, Florence, 1760. 353 length of back. So, yeah, quite nice. 35 to 40,000 there. Got cello bow by Husson, cello bow Thomasin, violin bow stick by Nicholas Leonard Tort. Let's have a look at this Tort stick from 1775. It's got some fractures, but could be worse even. 5 to 6,000. An Usha violin bow there. Violin bow by Mayer. Let's have a look at this. Violin bow by Nicholas Remy Mayer, around 1840. 20 to 25 there. And Bazin violin bow, Bazin cello bow. Usha violin bow, Thomasin violin bow, Bazin violin bow, Penzel violin bow, cello bow by Michael J. Taylor, Ealing strings, mounted in gold guilloche, crowned lilies. Wow, that's pretty fancy. 6 to 7,000. Very crisp kind of work there. Not so keen on this kind of frog, I must be honest. But love this detailing on the button. That's really beautiful. 6 to 7,000. Bazin bow there. Barb, Bazin, Fatigue. All really great bows here. It's a really nice Georges Lamy bow there. Marcel Lapierre. Let's have a look at this bow here. Rare violin bow by Georges Frederick Schwartz, made around 1820. 48 grams, 9 to 10,000. It's really nice. I like the kind of plain frogs. I think it's really nice. Yeah, interesting looking bow. 9 to 10,000 there. As you can see, this is really quite a difficult auction to kind of cut down on, because there's some really great stuff here. Cugnot violin bow, Dolling violin bow stick Vigneron. Let's have a look at this. Nicholas Leonard Tort bow stick at 1790, frog from the same period, copy, mounted in ivory, 5 to 6. Interesting head. Lupo II, we've got to have a look at that, don't we? Violin by Francois Lupo II, made around 1830, silver mounted, 25 to 30. Some of these are not so exciting to me, but interesting enough. Italian viola by Giuseppe Pedrozzini, made around 1925-1930. Cerruti model, 25 to 30. What's the length? About 45. That's pretty big. Definitely a curious model there. Mircore cello there. Violin by Derozy, 18th century violin, French school. Let's have a look at this. Interesting cello by Francois Corsart, Neufchâteau, around 1860 there. Sound post crack there, 15 to 20,000. That looks interesting enough there. Violin by Luigi Cavallini, made in Arezzo in 1889. 358 length of back, crack on the scroll, I presume, 16 to 18. Yep, that's quite nice. Violin by Augustin Blanchy, made in Nice, 1900. Vidal, let's have a look at this. Violin by Leopold Vidal, made in Nuremberg in 1754. 354 length of back, some restored breaks. Definitely interesting looking one. 8 to 10 on that. And we've got another, I was going to say, am I going mad, but we do have a viola by Luigi Cavallini, 1881. 391 length of back, 10 to 12. That's quite nice. Rare and interesting 3/4 violin by Scarampella. Okay. Mantua, 1897. Quite like the varnish on that. 6 to 8. 20th century violin. Violin by Tesfaye Barbe. Another Francois Corsart violin there. Let's have a look at this beautiful Honoré Derozy violin, made in Mircore, 1860. Small crack on the bottom, fairly good condition, 357. 12 to 15,000. It's a nice looking violin, interesting crackulature and kind of darkness on the scroll turns. Cello by Louis Laghetto, Paris, around 1750. 8 to 10,000. I wonder if there's any interesting marks on the scroll on this cello. No, not on this one. Sometimes when you have like the Solomons and some others, there's a few interesting kind of flower decorations and things on some of these 18th century cellos. It needs a bit of attention there. You can see lots of worm repairs. 8 to 10. Let's have a look at this interesting violin from the school of Rome, made in the style of Michael Platner, around 1740-1745. Some restoration of the table. Certificate from Albert Caressa from 1930. Okay, 25 to 30,000 there. '18th century German violin, 20th century violin. Violin by Sebastian Bernardel. Okay, so it's a kind of better size Bernardel here, 28 to 30. So this one is 353, small sole break, sound post break, Guarneri model. It's a nice looking violin. So I was saying that I really actually like the Bernardel violins. I think they're actually quite nice, and I'm usually kind of not a massive French violin person, but I think that is really nice work. Georges Lot violin, 18th century violin, inspired by Brescia. Magini label there. 359 length of back, probably Italian, or the head in any case. That's fairly interesting looking violin, that 6 to 8. Needs a bit of work there. Oh, we've got a Chanot here. Violin by Frederick William Chanot, made in London 1905, a Marty model there. 354 length the back, 6 to 8. Yeah, that's quite nice. It's quite decent. That's a good estimate actually for a Chanot. I think that's not a bad one. Okay, Solomon School. Okay, Paris, 1760. Splint torn, various restorations. Yeah, definitely needs some work. 1800 to 2000. I like that. That's a nice solid instrument. Another Chanot. This is a Georges Chanot there. Paris, 1859. 355 length the back. Let's have a look at this. 35 to 40,000 there. Half size cello bow, Sartori. This is an interesting bow. Violin bow by Stéphane Tomachot, made around 1990. Silver mounted, lizard trim. 3.5 to 4. It's an interesting design. Very curious. Cello bow from the Taut school. This is a beautiful looking bow. Around 1830. Rear frog and button, specially made in copy. Knocks and somewhat wear. It's a nice looking bow. 5 to 6. A lot double bass bow there. Sartori again. We should probably have another look at one. We've looked at a few, but we've done something here. 18 to 20,000. Made circa 1900. Ramrod marks, small stain of colour, minor wear. Let's see, what was the arrow about? Okay, that's the kind of stain of colour. I think that might actually be, looks a bit like a burn mark, potentially. I don't know if there's any bow makers that would watch this video, but this looks a bit like potentially it's been burnt, maybe if not in the original kind of making process, maybe someone recambered it or something over the flame, as you do, but potentially they managed to burn it. I mean, I'm not sure how you do that. You would have had to have left it over the flame for a bit too long, but it looks a bit like that. I have seen some other bows with that kind of burn mark. Anyway, so Mayer Workshop violin bow there. Usha 7/8 violin bow, so it's quite odd size. Let's have a look at this one actually. Violin bow by Sidney Yeoman, made circa 1940, mounted in tortoise shell there. Good condition, 4 to 5. That's a nice bow, but once again tortoise shell. I would personally avoid Thomasin bow here. Another bow by Yeoman there. Usha Thomasin, who is an exceptional violin bow by Nicolas Simon. 1840 to 1845, tortoise shell and gold there. Very good state. Oh, it's presented in the book L'Archette, Volume 2, page 158. That's a wonderful head. That's kind of very crisp. Look at that, kind of the flow. That's very beautiful. That's a nice 18 to 20,000. That's a great looking bow there. Vigneron, Pajot. Oh, we better look at this as well. Violin bow by Etienne Pajot, around 1840, 62 grams. Small crack in the mortise of the screw and nut, 40 to 45. It's a nice bow. Thomasin, Pierre Simon here. We've got violin bow, signed Gand & Berdel, 1876-1880. Silver mounted, 50 grams. So a bit of wear, 25 to 30. There. A Fleury bow there. We're getting through it, but it's taken a while. Like I said, a lot of really interesting stuff here. A Voran bow, nice bow there. Morizot, Lapierre, viola bow, violin bow by Piano, violin bow Piano, cello bow by Sartori again. I mean, really crazy amounts of bows here. 25 to 30,000. Head break, slight crack, or head beak. I'm not 100% sure on that. Anyway, this is an interesting violin. So Chapuis, we all know that I like Chapuis stuff. This is one of this kind of like low grade Chapuis violins that just look really bizarre. This is like 363. This looks like a kind of late 19th century violin. This has obviously been put into like a kind of Baroque setup. It's a bit of an odd kind of look to it. But some of these Chapuis violins from the late 18th century, they look late 19th century. Some of them, I would go as far to say they almost look like they could have been in the 20th century. What they did with the varnish and just the way it's prepared makes them look so. Some of them look so modern, but they're actually 18th century. This is kind of like a halfway house example, but some of these generally, like the lower tier ones, they look like they could have been made in the very, very late 19th century, very early 20th century. So it's a good kind of example of some of this curious work that's around. Violin by Aristide Cavalli's Workshop, Cremona, 1905. 359. Length the back. This kind of looks a bit familiar, but maybe I'm going mad. Let's have a look at this violin by Pierre Louvet, Paris 1743. 357 length the back, 4/5. It's had some kind of issues here. Needs a bit of restoration, but it could be quite a nice violin. 4/5. Small size viola from Mircore, viola from the workshop of Lambert, Mircore violin here, 18th century German viola. Let's have a look at this. 391. This kind of has some charm. 4/5. Violin by Maurice Mermelot, 20th century cello, Eastern Europe. Violin by, let's have a look, why not, another Gersa violin, 1768. 356 length the back, 10/12. You can never have enough Gersa violins. Charles Ruscha violin there. Italian violin made around 1910, 1920. Italian replaced table, 363. Yeah, it's definitely got very thick kind of edge work and interesting varnish there. Cello by Lambert Humbert. I should probably look at some more French Mircore stuff because I've been avoiding it a bit too much. 6/8. 20th century viola there. Violin by Sebastian Bernardel. Actually quite a few Bernardels now. After I went on my Bernardel speech earlier, they've all appearing now. 1865, 359 length the back, 22/25. Once again, really another nice looking instrument there. Here's a Hippolyte Corsart violin, another Mircore violin by just Derazy. I should probably look at this. 1880, 3/3.5. Yeah, it's kind of what you expect to see, which is why I don't really click on them too much. Violin by Pietro Grulli, made in Cremona, 1890. With the label there, Eric Blott certificate, 365. That's kind of unfortunate, kind of slightly odd F-holes as well. 15/18. Interesting. A violin by Lorenzo Carcassi, Florence, on 1770. Several breaks on the soundboard, including sound post, reinforced stomach pieces on the bottom, head replaced. Okay, 20/25. So must have some fairly serious issues there. Yeah, including sound post crack, reinforcement patches in the centre of the back. So there you go. It's got. I was thinking this is quite kind of fairly cheap for a Carcassi, but clearly it's got like a sound post crack repair on the back, which would explain why the value is down. But I mean, it could still be quite a good player's instrument, but it can be a bit risky with that kind of damage. Violin by Jean Petitcolas there. Let's have a look at this. It's interesting. Like tenor viola here by Hermann Ritter, Würzburg, 1881, 468. That's really interesting. I've not seen a kind of viola this size, or a tenor viola actually, for sale at auction, I don't think. 3,000 to 4,000. This is an interesting viola. Quite like that actually. Don't think it's too practical really, because it's probably going to cause most people a bit of pain trying to play it, but it's an interesting looking one for sure. Another violin by Roger and Max Millant. Let's give that a go. Paris 1958, 353. I think our pictures have disappeared. Have we lost the internet, I think? Back on again. Yeah, it's quite nice. Nice turns of the scroll, 6 to 8. Violin by Maurice Rougier. Mirmont. Let's have a look at this. A Mirmont violin, Paris 1872, 359. Okay, 18 to 20. Back onto some bows. Émile Auguste Houchard, Joseph Martin, JTL here. Remy Mayer. Let's have a look at this. Violin bow by Nicolas Remy Mayer, around 1830, 1835. Head chips, 15 to 20. It's an interesting bow. Violin bow from the Dodd School, around 1800. Foster, Frog and Button from the same period. Ivory, 3 to 4. That's quite nice. I quite like that bow. That's an interesting one. Simon bow there. Mayer, a maker from the Hill shop. Made by one of the greatest masters of Hill and Son. 1840. Interesting. Wormhole in the rise. Okay, interesting. 3 to 4. You can always tell, like, these, how well executed these Hill heads are as well. Really good. Bows, Vigneron bow there. Michael Genin, that's quite a nice looking bow. Violin bow stick by Michael Genin, around 1840. Okay. That's quite nice. 4 to 5. Houchard, Lamy, Mayer School, Nicholas Malin. Let's have a look at this. Circa 1845 violin bow. 25 to 30. Good condition. Interesting. Malin again here. Thomasin, Vigneron, Thomas Tubbs. Okay. Getting closer now. Nicholas Vorin bow, piano, Francois Fatigue cello bow there. Vorin bow stick by Jean-Pierre Marie Pessot, 1845. That's some weird kind of things going on here. That's a little bit strange. 10 to 12. Not 100% sure. It's an interesting cello bow. Baroque copy, Bone Frog, 2 to 3. I quite like the fluting on that bow. That's quite interesting. Remy Mayer bow there. Let's have a look at that. It's like 1850. Some fractures. Head beak slightly reworked. Okay. 20 to 25. I think they're saying here that this has been adjusted a bit. It's also really heavily worn up here. It's a lot of work to do on that bow. 20 to 25,000 there. Violin by Georges Apparoux, Eugene Malteau, Carolus Henri there. Let's have a look at this violin by Johann Joseph Stadelmann, Vienna in 1770, head replaced, 357. Wow, that's a great back. Looks like varnish has potentially been kind of messed around with. Actually, the whole instrument looks a little bit messed around with. 2 to 3, shame about that. Beautiful back though, really wonderful. 18th century Italian violin. probably from the Florence School, the Planis label, 354, 7 to 8 there. It's a Charot violin made in Mircourt 1820, 2 to 2.5, 357. Yeah, quite like that. That's not too bad. German cello there. Violin by Christophe Veron in Chambéry, 2004, 354 there, 5 to 7. So that's quite, nice. I do just like this, showing the gouge work on the scroll, like that a lot. 5 to 7 there. Februnet violin there. Pierre and Hippolyte Sylvestre in Lyon. Lots of Lyon stuff today. 1838, 14 to 15,000. I think that's a nice violin. Pictures are a little bit odd on some of these listings. 19th century French violin, 19th century viola made in Milan. Okay, bearing a Lavazza label, 429, 3 to 4. I mean, that is definitely a bit of a bonkers one. That one, 3 to 4. I'm not sure about that. Martin Mongenot there, 20th century violin, viola by Eric Blot. So that's a good one to look at. Made in Cremona 1977, 412. So a good length of back, 12 to 15. Eric Blot being one of the kind of notable experts based in Cremona, especially for certifying kind of more modern Italian violins and violas, cellos, etc. Bernardini violin, Schmidt viola, 18th century violin, inspired by the School of Brescia. I think we had one like this earlier, 351 there. This one not quite as interesting, I don't think, as the other one, 6 to 8 on that. Violin by Joseph Aubrey. Interesting rare half-size cello by Villaume. Violin by Amédée Dudouin, made in Mircourt. Got to get back to a few Mircourt things before the auction's over. 1948 there, 358 length of back, 2 to 2.5. And French violin made in the style of Paul Bailey. Let's have a look at that. 1880, 360 there. That's nice enough. 3 to 4. Late 18th century, early 19th century cello made in the Italian style. The Bergonzi label, 755 there. From the collection of Jean Petitcolas, end of the 18th century. 4 to 5. It's had an interesting life, I think, that cello, 4 to 5. Violin by Enrico Marchetti in Courgina in 1911. 359 there. It's the length of back, 20 to 30. Okay. 20th century Italian cello made in the style of Novelli, 12 to 15,000. Quite nice back wood there. And some more bows, a Bazin bow there, a Husson, Mare school bow there, another Duchesne II bow, we saw one earlier, another Yeoman bow, Workshop of Francois Picat, Morizon bow there, Martin bow, violin bow stick from the Tort School, Schwartz bow here, violin bow and stick by Georges Frederick Schwartz, 1835, rear frog of the Picat School there, good condition, 10 to 12. And let's see, a Miquel violin bow there, violin bow Morizot, violin bow Gaston Fatique, Gaston Lapierre, Morizot, cello bow there, violin bow Charles Père, German violin bow stick. On to the final page here, Bazin bow here. Actually, let's just have a look because we've ignored every single Bazin bow. This is probably not the greatest one to check, but anyway, 1890. It's nickel one, so it's a lower tier, 58 grams. 1200 to 1500. Morazor and an Usha bow there. Lapierre bow, JTL. Let's have a look actually at a JTL bow while we're here, circa 1940. Okay, and I think the last thing here, you can have a look at this Viola bow by Henri Louis Guillet, made circa 1950, 72 grams, small blows on the head, very good state. Okay, well that's it, 6,000 to 8,000. Well, they have it a bit longer than the normal videos of recent times. In any case, that was looking at the final Vichy catalogue, which is up tomorrow on the 1st of December. Really good auction actually, like one of the better auctions for quite a while. Some really interesting stuff, a few things in there that I'd want to kind of look at a few times over. I always recommend to people to kind of look through the entire catalogue, look at everything at least once, if not twice really. Sometimes even after like a third look I see other things where I'm like, oh, that's actually really interesting, or I see things which I'm like, that's a bit risky, but definitely worth looking over the catalogues many times. So anyway, the link will be in the description. Take your time, well, as much time as you have until tomorrow. Have a look at the auction, look at if there's anything interesting for you. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, goodbye. Ciao. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.